Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. 27 years we've been doing it. 27 tastiness dishes. Hope I don't gain 27 pounds this month doing this. I'm trying to show some moderation, although I'm going to be swallowing a lot of peach cake here before it's all over with. So a little spoiler alert for the top 10. Peach cake might be a part of it. Might be at Fenwick Bakery as well. All of it brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. I'll be at Coco's, very close to Fenwick Bakery, and close to my heart, the Cocoa Nut Shrimp. And the 40th anniversary of Coco's, which was on Sunday. We're going to celebrate on Wednesday with Marcella. We're also going to have Sig and his wife, Terry, who just got back from Africa. Councilman Ryan Dorsey is going to join us on Wednesday. We had Councilman David Marks from the other side of the aisle and the other side of the county joining us last week at Pizza John's. So we had a great day at Pizza John's. Great day at Fadley's on Thursday with this guy, Luke Jones, joining us now. We talked some pre-fake football, fake football. Dude, fake football's over. Like, it's done. We got, I'm on to Buffalo. That's all I'm going to say. I'm on to Buffalo right now, but you're on to some cuts. There's still a little around the edges that's going to happen here this week, but hey, dude, it's go time. It's football season, huh?
It is. It is. Hey, 2 weeks from now, you and I will be breaking down either a season opening win in Buffalo or the sky is falling to 0-1, right? I mean, that's how close we are at this point in time. So,
I just
uh,
hope it's not because Tyler Loop misses a kick or because Mark Andrews drops a ball or
especially the
Lamar
Mark
fumbles
Andrews thing,
or
especially the
any of
Mark
the
Andrews
nightmares,
thing.
because you know what's going to happen 5 days before this. NFL Network's going to show that game a dozen times, right? So,
At least a dozen.
how many times have you
ESPN, all
watched
that.
it? Be honest with me.
What, the game or that clip?
Well, the fact that we played it over for 3 days here,
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it just became Mark Andrews not showing up at the podium. It became who are they on to signing next, and what's the next deal that's going to happen, and like replaying that game, it's like replaying the Kansas City. Like, it was nice that Taylor Swift came to Baltimore and got to walk on the
Mm.
field and do all that. Around here, I don't know, man. I mean, I remember Haney was around here. He would replay all the losses in American League. Like, he knew all the losses as much as he knew the wins. The losses, to me, somehow um I don't think about that Peyton Manning game in '06 very very much anymore. I tend
Yeah.
to look at the books I've written and think, they won. But the Buffalo game, it was an incredibly winnable game. I mean, they've
Oh,
they've
no
lost
doubt.
playoff games. They went to Buffalo, they beat their ass here last year. So when we start talking about that game, I'm talking about the game from coming up 2 weeks from now. We're going to talk about that game last year a little bit. It's going to start showing up. The pieces of that game are going to start happening again over the next 10 days, I bet.
Oh, no question. I mean, when you don't open the entire NFL season, but you're the first Sunday night football game. I mean, that's a high profile game. That's a game that I think we all would agree that, okay, fully acknowledging Kansas City, who has been at the top in the AFC, the Ravens and the Bills have been right behind them, trying to unseat them, trying to be that team that gets to the Super Bowl. So when they face off in week one, yeah, it's going to be a big story. And yeah, we're going to see that clip quite a bit. And you talked about it being a winnable game. I mean, think about this. I mean, the Ravens set a franchise record for not just for the productivity and Lamar, who should have been MVP again, and what Derrick Henry did, and Zay Flowers being a Pro Bowl receiver, all their Pro Bowl selections, all of that. They set a franchise record for fewest turnovers committed in a season. And then they committed three in that game, right? And those three were very pivotal. I mean, we think about the drop. And obviously it was the very end of the game. The Andrews fumble was I mean, that was an excruciating back-breaking miscue right there. When you look at that and how the momentum had swung from that point, and it looked like the Ravens were going to drive down the field and score a touchdown, and he inexplicably kind of cuts back and towards the middle of the field rather than just getting downfield and getting down. That fumble was, not that it was worse in the sense that, yeah, I mean, literally if he catches the ball, it's a 2 point conversion and all that. But in terms of just the mistake, I mean, that was easily as egregious, right? So yeah, we're going to see those plays, but they've got to take care of the football, right? And a big message for them this entire spring and summer. And, look, this is a training camp kind of thing, but they have been tried to be as deliberate as they can be to the point where they have this whole new practice grading system and everything to try to make everything feel important. Not make every rep on the practice field feel important. Every single thing you do in the building feel important. So hypothetically, I suppose that you're that much more locked in for those biggest moments. Now, I feel like that's kind of a scientific way of going back about a psychological or artistic kind of problem they've had more so because it's been nothing about how they've played in the regular season has been, oh, well, I don't know if they can win in January. No, we've said this for years now that they, on paper and how they've looked in September, October, November, December, they've looked the part of a champion. The problem is that just hasn't carried over. So, that begins Sunday night in a couple weeks. Is it the same thing? No, no, it's not. I mean, if they win, yes, you'll feel great about some measure of feeling good about the beginning of the season, starting 1-0, knowing that it's a tiebreaker in terms of sorting out home field, which you hope you're going to be right in the thick of being able to secure the number one seed. So it's really important in that way. But a win in Buffalo in week 1 doesn't exercise any demons, right? I mean, those same demons are going to persist, and that's part of the mentally taxing part of where this Baltimore Ravens franchise is right now.
I think this is more about winning on the road than
And
this
that's
is
fair.
about beating
And that's
Buffalo.
fair.
I think this is about
Fine.
going into a hellhole on a opening night where everybody's going to be lit up. That place, it's the last opening night in the history of
Sure.
their stadium. Where I sat and watched them beat up on Jay Schrader and the K-Gun offense and Ted Marchibroda and all that all those years ago. Andre Reed, Bruce Smith, Jim Kelly, Thermal, all of them. As Chris Berman would say, they circle the wagons.
Yeah.
They'll be circling the wagons up there on opening night, and I to survive that and win would say something to me. I want to see where their 30 somethings are. I want to see where Stanley, Henry, Humphrey, like these guys, Roquan, even, I want to see what their aging core brings, including Lamar, who's now part of the aging core. None of these guys have won big games. None of these guys have a pelt. Van Noy's running around as part of this, right? Um, they have some veteran guys, and they brought in some other Jair Alexander types, and um, they brought in a Hall of Fame wide receiver to go with their Hall of Fame running back, to go with their Hall of Fame coach. Like, so they have all of this pedigree to win a game like this, and this is the league stacking it up on you early in the month because you are a marquee team, because Lamar should have been the MVP and all that, and they should have won the Super Bowl last year, and they haven't. In the same way that Josh Allen should have, could have. You go to Buffalo,
Yeah.
he's like Johnny Unitas. He hadn't won anything. And for both of these to match up on opening night, I mean, I don't need to tell you, dude. 0-1. 0-1 sucks, and one of these teams is going to be 0-1, and they both think they're going to win the Super Bowl. You losing the home game is much tougher on Buffalo. I mean, this is an uphill climb for the Ravens for me. I don't say I'll be shocked if they win, but I will be impressed if they win. It would, no matter how they win,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Good fortune, good luck, bad kicks, good kicks, whatever it is. Um, they need to be 1-0. I mean, they were 0-2 last year. We're so desperate that Harbaugh was texting me looking for peace.
Well, look, I'm going to continue to reject that it's overly like meaningful in like this symbolic way. Beyond just, hey, you want to win and you'll feel good about yourselves being 1-0. But for me, the message is very simple. Guys, the weather here in Buffalo, and I'm going to project out here. I haven't seen the 14-day forecast or the 10-day forecast, but I'm assuming the weather is going to be pretty nice in Buffalo on September 7th. Certainly not going to be snowing. Even for Western New York, early September
I say
snow is a
69
bridge too far.
degrees and sun setting and a little cloud cover.
But the whole point, and my message would be, guys, do you want to come back here in January and be playing on the road in the divisional round or the AFC Championship game again? Now, all things being equal, we need to get there first. So if that's the path we have to take, so be it. But wouldn't you rather be playing in Baltimore? Wouldn't you rather Josh Allen and the Bills come to our place where, our fans can get after it? We've got to win tonight in order for that to happen, right? I mean, that's what it's about for me. I mean, yes, beating the Bills, to your point, it's a nice confidence boost. You'd rather be 1-0 than 0-1, but we also know what happened to this team last year. And you mentioned the 0-2 thing. It's not that they weren't able to recover. They obviously recovered to the point where they won the division, and they were what, the number 3 seed, and there was no question about any of that. Okay, you thought for 5 minutes the Steelers might win the division, and then we saw how they completely collapsed over the final month of the season. But it really is as simple as you're chasing Kansas City, and you're right there with Buffalo, right? I mean, in any given year, the Bills have played the Chiefs more in January over the last 5 or 6 years, but they both have been the bridesmaid, right? The Chiefs have been the bride. You're trying to get there. You're trying to be that Super Bowl team, but you've got to win. You got to beat them in the same way that the message a couple weeks later, when they go to Kansas City at the end of September, it's the same thing. Do you want to be playing here again in January, or do you want them to be coming to Baltimore? Now, the cynic would say, well, the Chiefs came to Baltimore 2 years ago and the Ravens still didn't win, and fair enough. But that's what this is about. I mean, it's not about like, oh my gosh, you're 0-2 and are we going to make the playoffs? Are we going to fall apart? Are we going to spiral? No, barring like some catastrophic injuries, I'd be stunned. If this team is going to be that, they're going to be fine in that regard. But fine in that regard isn't good enough anymore for this franchise. It's time to take the next step. We've been saying that for years now, and you do that by beating Buffalo in Week 1 on the road and beating Kansas City in Week 4 on the road. And that's not to say that it's impossible if they don't win one of those games or if they lose, but you're already behind the 8 ball. You've already missed out on the head-to-head tiebreaker under those circumstances. So this is a great opportunity in that regard for me, much more so than anything symbolic or anything that's, cathartic, in terms of exercising demons from last year. No, like this won't cancel out what happened last January, but it can put you on a path to be in a better position to cancel out what happened last January. And that's by winning, because then that just improves the chances of hosting Buffalo for a playoff game in January. So, I mean, would I be surprised if they win? Of course not. I mean, they destroyed Buffalo in Baltimore last year, early in the season, right? I mean, from a true talent level standpoint, if you ask me who has the better roster from 1 to 53, I think I'm more inclined to say the Ravens. But that said, that only wins you a game on paper, or that only makes you look better in terms of, no disrespect to Aaron Schatz and DVOA, but those kind of metrics, right? The Ravens have done phenomenally in those kinds of ways, right? And in terms of people singing their praises and the metrics saying how great they are and their point differential and all that. I mean, it comes down to being at your absolute best at the absolute biggest moments. And Week 1 doesn't qualify in that regard, but it can go a long way in helping you when you get to that stage that you're playing in Baltimore rather than in Buffalo, or in Baltimore rather than going to Arrowhead, but you've got to take care of those teams in September. So easier said than done, in the same way that right now Buffalo's saying, ooh, we got Lamar and the Ravens. Is Mark Andrews going to have 2 backbreaking mistakes again? Is Lamar going to turn it over twice again like he did? So they're confident. I mean, both these teams should be confident. There's nothing to not be confident about, other than just the fact that you're recognizing you're playing a heck of a football team in your opener, and everyone wants to start 1-0 rather than 0-1.
He is Luke Jones. He is getting ready for football action. So these around the edges roster cuts and where they
Yeah.
are, and so many years they've brought in special teams players, linebackers, the Gary Stills of the world, you name it, guys that get off the edge of other rosters. I mean, there's certainly potential right now that as an organization, they're thinking they're going in one direction, but Tuesday night, a player gets cut somewhere else that they're like shocked by that feels like a linebacker need or an offensive line depth position. Or I'm trying to think of other places where they legitimately, they're not looking for a wide receiver. They're not looking for
Yeah.
a cornerback, right? I mean, but there are some positions where there might be a player that pops on this team by the end of the week or the beginning of next week that they stash away and, don't give them the 17-week player association clause to be on their opening night roster. They're certainly going to augment their roster. They always do.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of augment the roster, I mean, is it going to be a big signing? I mean, when you and I were at Fadley's, I threw out the name Jadeveon Clowney, right? Not just in terms of pure speculation, right? In terms of David Ajabo is going to be the fifth outside linebacker. Adisa Isaac's going to IR to start the year because he has an elbow injury. Ajabo doesn't play special teams, so if you're talking in terms of okay, your fifth outside linebacker is already at best a rotational guy, if not a healthy scratch on Sundays. Do you explore the possibility of Jadeveon Clowney? And look, I mean, as you and I are talking in real time, there's been no whiff of that, at least that's leaked to the outside world. So, that's kind of on the higher end of the spectrum of, or the ladder of things that could happen. But things that are more plausible, a veteran linebacker shakes free that you really love to improve your special teams that lost Malik Harrison and Chris Board in the offseason. The idea of, you'd really like to keep someone like Keon Martin on the 53-man roster. So does that mean that, I don't know. I mean, I kind of already thought Brent Urban was a practice squad kind of guy that you can elevate a couple times early on. And then, as you know, Nestor, they'll one or two guys, back end of the roster guys get hurt on special teams. They go on IR, and suddenly you find room for Brent Urban, right? I mean, and especially now you have these 16-man practice squads that have all these veteran exemptions, so you can put 30 something Brent Urban on the practice squad for the first month of the season, and then eventually he'll find his way to the 53-man roster. I mean, you can do those things. So could they do that with Brent Urban? I think another guy that they could at least conceivably do that with is John Jenkins, the 36-year-old nose tackle that they signed to basically replace Michael Pierce. Not for maybe 100% one for one, but he's going to absorb quite a few of those snaps. Could he be a surprise cut that then winds up, back on the roster 2 days later or something along those lines because of what you just said? Veterans on the week one roster, their contracts, become guaranteed or vest and all that. So, there could be a couple things like that. But that said, and I say this with no disrespect to Keon Martin, who had another really good game against Washington, a pick six. He had a great block as the vice on the punt return that had John Harbaugh just gushing on the sideline, giving him high fives and everything. I think he liked that more so than what the kid's done as a corner because, hey, if you're the 53rd player that makes the team, you're on special teams. You're probably not playing corner unless four guys have gotten hurt. So, there could be some things like that, but overall, I don't necessarily think that anything that you lay out there, Bo Braid being cut potentially, these aren't, whether they're going to truly keep Rasheen Ali as a fourth running back. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, Nestor. We're talking about that. We're talking about, will they keep a 10th offensive lineman? Garrett Dellinger, their 7th round pick. I mean, these aren't moving the needle moves. These are on the margin of the margins, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And that's a credit to them because they do have such a good roster on paper and how deep this looks for the most part. Now, look, could they stand, if some really solid veteran backup offensive lineman shakes free, would they love to sign that guy? Sure. How many of those guys are actually shaking free in 2025, right? No team has good depth with the offensive line. The Philadelphia Eagles, who won a Super Bowl behind, not just Saquon Barkley, but the offensive line that blocked for him. They just made a move to bring back an offensive, bring back a depth offensive lineman because they're concerned about their depth. right? Even the best offensive lines in football in 2025 do not have backups that they have a whole lot of confidence in. That's why Patrick McCary was so valuable over the last 5 years. So, yeah, if there's someone that becomes available in that light, or let's say they, you know, let's throw David Ajabo out there. And I'm just using him as an example, right? I mean, we've used Colton Cowser as our Orioles example. If there's some team that really love David Ajabo when coming out of the draft and still, they need edge rusher help, and they say, you know what, Ravens, we do have a backup guard that we think would be better than your than Ben Cleveland, let's say. And let's trade these guys, and we're just going to swap two players in their last year of their rookie contract, or we'll give you this guy and we're going to swap fourth round picks in next year's draft or something like that. Could they make a move or two like that? Yeah, of course. I mean, Eric DeCosta, like Howie Roseman, like Veach, like Snead, like think of all the best of the best general managers in football. They make moves like that. They're always looking to get, if it's 1% better, hey, it's 1% better. So is there going to be a move or two like that? Sure, I could see something like that. But by and large, when we're sending out the WNST text alert, I'm already thinking, what's the headline going to be? Because we can't send out literally all 37 cuts, right? We don't do that. So I'm thinking, who are the top cuts going to be? Like Bo Braid, um, you know, Jay Higgins, who's done a nice job as an undrafted rookie linebacker, but he's an undrafted rookie linebacker, right? Could it be like a surprise, like Ben Cleveland? No, I don't think so, because I still think Ben Cleveland's one of their two best backup linemen. So, I look at that and I say, there's not a whole lot of drama here, at least at first blush. And even if there is a surprise cut, I always think back to the first one, the first surprise cut where they did like a handshake, wink, wink. Do you remember what it was? It was Justin Forsett 9 years ago, where we said, holy cow, where did that come from? And then what happened? Justin Forsett was back on the roster 2 days later. So, even trying to think about a move like that, is Brent Urban that guy? I mean, I don't think anyone would be shocked by that. They've done handshakes with Brent Urban.
Dude, as long as they don't give away Pierce's number and he gets to wear that when he plays, I'm good. I'm good
Yeah. With it. And like I said, I think, I don't think Brent Urban's going to be on the 53-man roster. I think he'll go to the practice squad, and I think they will, if they feel week one is a good time that you could stand to use that body type, that 5 technique guy in your rotation against that Buffalo team, or against that Detroit team in a couple weeks, a couple weeks after that, then you'll see him elevated, right? Again, this 16-man practice squad that was introduced during COVID, and being able to elevate a couple guys every week, that's really changed the numbers big time in terms of how you view your roster.
Well, and it's like a baseball team playing with 28 or 29 and having bullpen guys,
no doubt,
and saying
optionable
these guys
pieces
are used up. We're not going to have them be part of the team tonight. We need eligible players that are for this particular matchup.
Exactly.
And especially in a specialized sport where they're going 5 and 6 deep in the secondary, 5 and 6 deep in the wide receiver, return game, all of that. That the flexibility is something that Brian Billick would have loved to have had in his era.
No question. And that's part of how you have to play this 53-man roster. Everyone calls it the final 53. No, it's the first one, because we know how much it's going to change. But you have to view it through the lens of, okay, I've mentioned Keon Martin. Kid had had the big opening drive against Dallas, and I know people have already forgotten about it already, but I pay attention to the preseason. Looked good.
Undefeated preseason.
They did. Had a pick 6 on Saturday afternoon. I mean, that kid's done everything he possibly could do to earn a 53-man roster spot. And that said, he's the 7th corner if he's kept. And, you look at it and say, okay, does that mean one fewer linebacker? Does that mean you cut Bo Braid? Does that mean you have to do something with your defensive line differently? But you have to look at it through the lens of saying, yeah, you know what? Keon Martin's undrafted, but gosh, this kid made so many splash plays that the NFL's Twitter and social media was putting out highlights of him. There might be 3 other teams ready to claim him that we want to keep him. So maybe we do cut John Jenkins, who is not subjected to waivers, and then we can actually work out a handshake to bring him back, you know, week 1 on the practice squad, week 2, whatever. Or you just do that and you're going to put someone else on IR and that gives you an open roster, gives you a roster spot. So those gymnastics happen, but that is part of the math here where you look at those vested vets who do not have to go through waivers, whereas you have some of these young guys that look, if Keon Martin is playing defense for the Ravens this year, that tells me Jair Alexander got hurt, Chidobe Awuzie got hurt, Jalen Armour Davis got hurt, maybe Marlin or Wiggins got hurt. I mean, like so much has to go wrong. So no, you're not thinking about it in terms of that for him. But if you think he could be your nickel corner 2 years down the line and he might be the next Tavon Young for you and he could play some special teams, you don't want to lose him to waivers. So that's where you're kind of looking at this and you're trying to sift it all, sort it all out, and kind of figure how you're going to approach it. So, but that said, let's face it, Ruben Lowry, we've talked about this summer. Keon Martin, we've talked about this summer. We've talked about Jay Higgins. And when I say we, I just mean anyone who, kind of gets into the weeds of watching the Ravens in the preseason. Chances are, even if any of those guys make the team, a pretty decent chance we're not talking about them again, unless they have some kind of back-breaking penalty on special teams that cost them a football game. So, you're kind of a prisoner of the moment and you're kind of caught up in the roster minutia. And I love that stuff. I mean, I find it interesting to think how you're going to put together a puzzle. And I think an underrated part of this now is how the kickoff return has changed over the last 2 years now. I think that's kind of changed what you're looking for in terms of what your kick return and your kickoff team looks like a little bit. But you have to figure it all out. It's literally not, what are the best 53 offensive and defensive players combined? No, it's the best 53 that give you enough offensive starters in depth, defense starters in depth, but also who are my core 7 or 8 backups that are going to be my core special teams guys, and then do I have enough other backups who I can plug into the kickoff team and they're not going to hurt me, right? I mean, that's kind of how a roster is built in that way. So, we could talk all we want about these undrafted rookies, and look, they crushed Washington. They crushed Dallas. It was another example of the Ravens spots 40 through 90 on their roster being so much better than what the Cowboys or the Commanders had. And that was the reason why they won 24 preseason games in a row over this last, 2016 through 2 years ago. Same exact story there. It's a credit to the organization's scouting department and their coaching staff for developing them. That said, come week 1, I don't know how much that really, truly matters that much when it comes to the regular season. So great stories. It'll be some fun. Again, we'll send out the text. We'll see what the roster looks like, but we also know it's going to change quite a bit. Not just here over the next week, but certainly over the next 18 weeks, knowing attrition and roster needs and young guys don't work out. Veteran players are suddenly washed up. We know it'll change, but they certainly, the young guys, I'll say this, and I'll leave you with this parting, not shot, but a compliment. I do think this is, in recent years, there are 2 or 3 undrafted rookies where I really say, man, I wasn't talking about those guys at all a month ago, and they've really done a nice job. To see 1 or 2 of them be on the 53-man roster, which I think Ruben Lowry's on. I think he's close to a lock. He's past Bo Braid as a number 4 safety. You're going to keep 4 safeties at least. But, the other guys, they've done a nice job. And again, it's a credit to everyone involved that you have some tough decisions to make, but it's also really good that these are the kind of decisions you're talking about rather than, holy crap, who's our number 3 corner going to be? Because we don't like any of these guys beyond their starters, which a decade ago, they were kind of sort of in that spot, but their depth is much better in that department. But now it's just a case of, hey, need to go out there and play and try to keep as many guys healthy as possible.
Let's go to Buffalo. I'm wearing my Curio gear. It's our 27th anniversary. I even have the new logo up. We'll leave the light on for you. Our GBMC hotline is now alive and available. All of our guests are going to be coming in. I got great guests booked for next week for the Buffalo game. A lot of NFL Hall of Fame voters, Pro Football Hall of Fame voters, some people up in Buffalo coming on. Luke and I are going to be looking at the game as well. We've done the Basayo contract situation. Bradish is coming back and pitching this week, so there's some sports news to be made. If you're on the WNST tech service, you will get it first. All of it brought to you by Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy. It's like sports season around here. I'm wearing purple. We're having fun. We're eating crab cakes. We're eating tastiness foods for our 27th anniversary, including Luke, I didn't when I do these segments with you, I talk more than I eat. I do have like one little piece of peach cake left here. I just want you to see that this might be in the top 10. I'm just saying of things that greatest things I've ever had. And it's peach cake. It's like eggnog. Gotta get it now. It disappears in a couple of weeks. They take it away from you. So act on that. Act on all of our tastiness, as well as our Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by the Maryland Lottery. I have Lucky Sevens. I have Pressure Lucks. I'm going to have some Raven scratch-offs beginning next week. I'm putting together our first set of stops into September. We're going to move our Slancha show this week closer to the Fells Point Oyster Fest into September. We are going to be at Coco's on Wednesday. Great guest on Wednesday as well. Costas and Timonium on Monday. And throughout the week, you're going to be seeing some tastiness droppings that you're going to want to check out, especially my Chinese joint. Makes me happy. He's Luke. I'm Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, talking Ravens cuts and Baltimore positive. Stay with us.